Ladies and gentlemen, the plenary session will start in a few minutes. Please take your seats.
سيداتي سادتي، ستبدأ أعمال الجلسة. يرجى العودة إلى أماكنكم. شكراً.
Education is at the heart of so many expectations and challenges. He sees it as a way to improve the life of his family. She sees it as a way to share knowledge beyond borders. He sees it as the means to make new breakthroughs in science. She wants to learn about the world while preserving her culture. He wants to understand the forces of nature. And she wants to bring learning to remote communities. Education is driven forward by bold innovators. You connect classrooms to the outside world. You create access for learners who are being left out. You imagine new tools for learning. You find new ways of developing sustainable livelihoods. And yet, we still need to do more to bring high-quality education to all. In an increasingly complex and interdependent world, if we can combine their dreams with your vision, if we can connect their hopes with your insight, if we can transform our ideas into collective actions, together we can build the future of education. WISE 2012, Collaborating for Change.
Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, salam alaikum, and a warm welcome to WISE. My name is Michal Hussein, and it's my privilege to be your MC. A special welcome to His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani and to Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser. We're honored to have you here as WISE gets underway. Now, WISE is a unique event, and I say unique because this is a chance for a conversation on education like no other. As many of you know, WISE is a year-round conversation, but this is where it all comes together. 3 days where we have a chance to share experiences, to learn from each other, and hopefully also to be inspired by each other. In my work with the BBC, I'm fortunate to travel around the world, often to countries at a time of crisis, but wherever I go, I'm struck by and humbled by so many parents who are making huge sacrifices for their children's education, and indeed humbled by the children themselves. Children like the Pakistani teenager Malala Yousafzai, who just a few weeks ago was shot and nearly killed because she dared to speak out for girls' education. So this is a vital debate, and over the next 3 days you're going to hear many stories about projects that are making a real difference. We'll be talking about access to education, also about quality, and crucially about innovation, being really creative in breaking down the barriers that stand in the way. But to get WISE underway, let's hear first from someone who is really the driving force behind this conversation. She is UNESCO's Special Envoy on Basic and Higher Education, an advocate on the UN Millennium Development Goals, a high-profile member of the Secretary-General's Education First initiative, and also the chairperson of the Qatar Foundation. So please welcome to the stage Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser.
السلام عليكم. رحب بكم مرة أخرى بالدوحة.
May peace be upon you. I welcome you once again to Doha to continue the work we had started in 2009 concerning the future of the field of education. And I would like to pay a tribute to your contribution in addressing various educational issues, especially the ones related to innovation for change. We have witnessed the success of WISE in its comprehensive approach and its ability to follow the centric dimension of education, which affects human life and all the world's issues, and thus requires multidisciplinary partnerships that we are trying to forge together in a future in order to build a future which is free from illiteracies. And when I say literacy, I'm talking about cultural, alphabetic, and economic illiteracy. However, the changes taking place in all these fields must start from education, and therefore we are here annually to meet under the umbrella of WISE to set a culture of innovation in education and renewal in innovation. We know that education concerns all the different fields and combines all the different issues. Education can lead countries either to prosperity or to ruin. It is through education that the collective mind of the community is formed, and it is with education that we build the values of peace and not of war, and we build a collective spirit of education. We build a future which is new, which is innovative, and your annual meeting is of a historical nature, because it's not just an annual gathering that ends there. It is something that is carried out throughout the year with projects and topics of innovation in education that participants have agreed upon. We understand the need for innovation because it's important to meet the challenges of education, and we need education of quality. The exceptional problems require exceptional solutions, and WISE is an initiative that wants to generalize innovation and scalable projects applicable to various environments within an innovation network based on cooperation and continuous coordination. The project of the BRAC Institution in Bangladesh, whose founder, Mr. Fadel Hassan Obeid, won the WISE Prize in 2011, is considered as a good example of support of innovative solutions in order to meet such conditions. In Bangladesh, there are marshy areas where populations are isolated, and that impedes possibility of establishing good schools. And the BRAC Institution has provided an innovative solution that might be called the floating schools through gathering students in classrooms on boats that were prepared for the purposes of education and transportation. Last month, when I visited one of these schools to have a closer look at the project, I was astonished by the unlimited human capacity to challenge difficulties and tame nature conditions. Now, that's precisely the role that WISE can play. WISE has built a long-lasting relationship of communication and knowledge between the tough issues and those who are capable of finding innovative and effective solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where no single person can dictate his or her model to others. We live in a world where we need to share in the spirit of cooperation and coordination. And it is no longer possible for an individual to limit excellence and innovation to himself alone or to close his boundaries and retire from the world. I think there is one sector that really requires cooperation and coordination, and that is education, because education is indisputably the environment in which to build the future and to develop and build our common dreams. If we deal with the problems of education and strengthen the fact that it is everyone's right, then we will eliminate many social, economic, political and security problems, and these are the results that we will be able to achieve. Is it fair in the 21st century that there should be 775 million illiterates in the world and 61 million children who are deprived of primary education, including 28 million because of their destiny, unfortunately, live in conflict zones. And these are the ones who need education the most. So if we are to combat conflicts and crises, we need to do it via education. But despite international efforts in the field of education, there are still serious deficiencies that require serious cooperation to accomplish change. In mid-September, the world leaders in the United Nations renewed their pledge to give all the children of the world primary education by the year 2015. Now, this requires a comprehensive international effort so that we can move forward in the future from addressing this issue to confronting other challenges. WISE currently heads towards a new social contract through a number of programs. However, the completion of the change that we require in education, we need a moral and practical obligation, and everyone should contribute to these efforts that will not succeed if you do not believe in real and effective partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, each one of us, starting from his own country or his own institution, can proceed with this change in the context of his quest to instill a culture of innovation in education. However, the act of knowledge and innovation in particular requires collaboration and cooperation and coordination in order to achieve the common goals. And in this context, and from the platform of WISE, I invite you tomorrow to attend the launch of a new initiative that will contribute to putting practical solutions to send students who are deprived from education back to school. I wish all of you a very successful conference. Peace and God's mercy and blessings be upon you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. You know, without your passion for this area, we wouldn't all be gathered here today. So thank you very much for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, our theme this year at WISE is Collaborating for Change, and there are over 1,200 of us here for this event representing 100 different countries. So I think it's fair to say there's a wealth of experience here in the room. Let me tell you a little bit about the next 3 days. Today, the focus is going to be on the big picture, the broad context in which we find ourselves, the trends in education as well as those shaping education. Then tomorrow, day 2, we start to talk more practically about addressing those challenges, looking at specific areas like financing, remote learning, early childhood education, the involvement of social entrepreneurs. And then on the final day, the conversation is going to be focused on accelerating change. I know some of you experience frustration with the slow pace of change and reform in education, but there are positive examples to share. And also, we're going to be asking you to be really bold and to think far ahead into the future about what the future of education can and should look like. So there is a great deal in store, and the education conversation is a vital one. Next, have a look at this.
For education.
We should focus on the development of education, taking into consideration contemporary issues and attempting to incorporate them into a modern educational approach so that everyone benefits from this development.
Well, the private sector, along with governments and even NGOs, all share one common objective, and that is to achieve better educational outcomes, educational excellence, which ultimately is a well-educated workforce.
So I can very easily picture a future where the school becomes part of a larger matrix of different entities that are all providing learning to the young people. But of course, the school has to maintain a role in securing that the quality of the learning is still at a high standard.
The education quality is actually something where you meet the need of the society. But the need of the society has no limit, no top limit, no ceiling.
The educational pyramid has a wide base.
At its tip is university, on which we spend more money. I wish to reverse this, because if we were to spend more money at the bottom, climbing up would become easier.
The wisest investment we can make today is to target those who are missing out.
If you want to have an educated population, whether it's in Nigeria or Myanmar or southern Peru, basically you have to treat education and teachers with the same seriousness that you would treat your banking industry.
Innovation, I think, is an example of educationists really thinking in new and different ways about how to respond to particular contexts.
We are coming to a world that we should be learning from each other all the time rather than thinking that we know everything. We should be looking forward to somebody doing better than us.
Innovation is crucial because we have been dealing with education for so long. And we see that the progress is not as fast as we would like it to be.
That's the question we need to be asking. What capabilities does a good education system promote? And how at each age and in each region, how are we going to do that?
So this is a conversation at WISE that's going to take place not just in this room, but also beyond this room. And the way we're going to do that is that there is a hashtag set up on Twitter by which all of you could tweet about your experiences and your thoughts about here. Hash WISE 2012 is the one that will be used throughout these 3 days. So also will be those who join the conversation from beyond WISE, their thoughts will also be fed into what is said in here. We'll be watching all the tweets, and you'll also start to see them come up on the banners here. And if you can have a look at the WISE website, there are also polls that are asking for your opinions on key subjects and key topics of this conversation. So if you have a moment, please do go online and give us your views. And again, all of that will be fed back into what you see and hear on the stage. Next this morning, it's a pleasure to welcome someone who's really a key figure in bringing us all together. He is the chairman of WISE and also the president of Hamad bin Khalifa University. So please welcome Dr. Abdullah bin Ali Al Thani.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Your Highness, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, Your Highness, Sheikh Hamouza bin Nasser, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WISE 2012, the 4th World Innovation Summit for Education. I welcome those who are new to Doha and to the WISE, as well as those who are already members of our community. The key sessions of our summit are being streamed live via the WISE website. And
vous pourrez bien sûr voir sur le site internet quel est notre travail. Je remercie également ceux qui sont plus loin d'entre nous. Bonne note des
great anticipation of her announcement tomorrow. We are delighted that she has chosen to give our summit the additional honor of associating us with her important new initiative. This is a moment to reflect on the task that lies before us during these 3 days. Our theme this year, Collaborating for Change, is a clear restatement of the purpose of WISE. Her Highness Sheikh Hamouza bin Nasser initiated this summit 4 years ago because she recognized that the state of education in the world cannot be allowed to continue. She saw that every drop of a human talent must be mobilized to overcome our great global challenges. At the same time, too many people still do not have access even to the basic education that will enable them to build and secure a life. Standing still is not an option when we know progress is possible. In its short history, WISE has identified many islands of excellence. All over the world, individuals and organizations are doing wonderful work, often in difficult circumstances. We must learn from them. We must discover how to expand, replicate, adopt, and adapt these winning practices so that they will be equal to our problems while respecting the rich diversity of culture reflected in our auditorium today. And we must not delay. The fastest way to make progress is through collaboration. Moreover, innovation often comes from sharing ideas and experience. The program of WISE 2012 invites us to consider how education can be reshaped to meet the major challenges of modern life against the backdrop of globalization and despite stark inequalities among and within societies. We will seek solutions through exciting change models, paying particular attention to successful alliances, and we will try to chart pathways for the future. WISE promotes partnerships that will make the greatest difference as rapidly as possible. However, it is also leading from the front through its own collaborative programs, and I would like to mention some of our noteworthy results. This year, we have recognized.
Cette année, nous avons reconnu qu'il y a eu.
We have now showcased in this way 24 projects from many different places and levels of education. They are an important store of expertise in innovation, and we will celebrate them at our gala dinner tomorrow. Last year, in support of the United Nations Millennium Development Goal, Her Highness decided that one of the 2012 WISE Awards would be for a project that has best achieved innovative financing of primary education. We have produced another publication. The latest WISE book is on the topical subject of reconnecting education and the world of work. And it is a further addition to the reference archive we are creating about innovation in education. The WISE Haiti Task Force has continued its excellent work to help reconstruct the country's education system. With our local partner, FOCAL, we have identified and are supporting Haitian projects that are achieving important success on the ground in the classroom. For the third year, we are producing with Euronews the educational magazine program, Learning World. This brings stories about education to life and is broadcast in all continents, now in 13 languages. Also, for the third time, we have held the WISE Program for Education Leadership for recently appointed university presidents, mainly from developing countries. This is a small, customized masterclass, and the numbers of students, faculty, and staff who have benefited indirectly from this program now reach hundreds of thousands. Later in this session, I will have the honor of announcing the 2012 WISE Prize for Education laureate on behalf of the 2012 WISE Prize for Education jury. The winners of this major global prize, awarded annually for an outstanding contribution to education, will stand as role models to all of us and will raise the status of education in the eyes of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are deeply honored that for the second time, His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, is with us to present this prestigious award. This is a strong signal to the world of a global significance of education. Last year, His Highness presented the inaugural WISE Prize for Education to Sir Vasily Hassan Abid, founder and chairman of BRAC, the world's largest non-governmental development organization. And I'm pleased to tell you that Sir Abid is here today with us. And now, I wish to pay tribute to one of the most exciting developments of WISE. It was clear from early stage that our debate needed the input of learners themselves if it is to serve future needs. 2 years ago, we created Wise Learners' Voice, a select group of young people from around the world who have demonstrated their commitment to change in education. Their diverse contributions to the last 2 WISE summits were compelling, and we knew we must take better use of their talent, their engagement, and their vitality. And so, Wise Learners' Voice became a continuing program with a mission to drive the global debate on education. In the past year, the learners have taken part in international events on education and development, and they have visited WISE Awards-winning projects. Their experience has informed a collaborative research project. They are developing into a powerful international network of education activists who are dedicated to transforming learning, and their strength will steadily increase. This year, another 30 learners have been selected from a wide range of backgrounds and countries, and they will add fresh vigor to the force for change. I would like to present a short film about their activities. The Learner's Voice will become a year-round program with an emphasis on developing advocacy skills among selected young people.
With a common passion for education, students from all over the world stemming from diverse backgrounds and disciplines. 30 learners selected each year to work as delegates at the WISE Summits, forming together the WISE Learner's Voice.
Their voices will be heard more clearly on those places where they can make the greatest difference. It is important that we hear from students so we can learn from them, because they are the future of education.
Throughout 2012, they conducted a collaborative research on increasing access to education through innovation, engaging on a global visit of pioneering projects and participating in major international events to network with thought leaders, experts, and policymakers.
A motivation to make a change in his community or his country or the world as a whole.
And kind of at least be confident that I'm on the same page as a lot of the great thinkers around the world.
With experts in education, and they got some advice and refinements and probably some resources.
It's not just in the classroom, it's not just in school, but in every experience and every opportunity that we have.
Their most recent trip was to New York for the 11th Youth Assembly at the United Nations, focusing on young people's contribution to achieving the MDGs.
You can remember when Kennedy spoke there, when people like Ban Ki-moon speaks there. It's really shocking. You cannot believe that you are actually there.
My best memory in the Youth Assembly and the United Nations is when I was part of the panel discussion and I talked about our Learner's Voice program.
There they were awarded a grant from the Resolution Project to both fund a mentorship program for young people in Haiti and gain advice on how to run a social venture.
It is a teamwork, and then I really enjoy to work with all the others, and I'm really proud to be part of the Learner's Voice program.
This year's collective work was a model of constructive collaboration. Their findings will help formulate further questions, and reinforced by 30 new WISE learners, their passion and pragmatism will drive forward the education debate.
That makes me realize that I can do a difference. I can make a difference.
This passion will continue as long as I believe education should be modernized.
Using innovative ways in teaching and schooling is very important for the future, and especially in the developing world.
It reinvigorated and reignited my passion towards what me and other young people can do. I think the main important thing is it's about the belief in human potential.
I would like that you seek opportunities to interact with them during the summit. They have much to teach us. Finally, I thank those organizations that have contributed to this summit, our institutional partners, our corporate partners, ExxonMobil and Qatar Petroleum, and our media partners. The WISE Summit is the only event to gather such a wide range of expertise, and I believe our discussion will be rigorous and inspiring. Please take full advantage of this unique opportunity. We will also learn a great deal in our informal interactions, so please do not hesitate to reach out to fellow participants and make new contacts. I thank you for bringing your talents and knowledge to WISE 2012, and I urge you to be generous in your contributions. With collaboration, we will all gain. Thank you.
Dr. Abdullah, thank you very much for that, and we look forward to welcoming you back on stage later on when you unveil this year's WISE Prize laureate, one individual singled out for their contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, the WISE 2012 learners. So they are a very special part of WISE, and actually they're going to be helping lead the interactive conversation on Twitter as well straight away. So let's turn now to our first panel discussion of this year's WISE. This one is going to really look at some of the big themes that are going to dominate this year. So our panel together represent a UN agency, a national government, and also a global business. And I'd like to invite our three panelists to join me on stage now. Thank you. So a warm welcome to you all. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our panelists to you. Irina Bokova is the Director General of UNESCO, the UN's educational, cultural and scientific organization. She is here with us in Doha as the representative of the Secretary General himself. Andrew Swiger is Senior Vice President at ExxonMobil, which is involved in many educational projects around the world, and particularly with promoting the so-called STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And also His Excellency Dr. Andrei Fosenko, a former Russian Minister of Education and the architect of key educational reforms in Russia, but also today an aide to the Russian president. So welcome to you all. As I said, today is really about the big picture for education. So Irina Bokova, perhaps I could start by asking you to really outline the biggest issues facing education at the moment, the context for WISE this year.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this very distinguished panel, and I would like also to thank Their Highnesses on behalf of the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, for having this leadership in organizing WISE. I think WISE is really the big conference on education where we have different stakeholders in thinking about what is at stake. I believe that there are new tendencies coming at the upfront. Education is becoming part of the global political agenda. And I think that WISE conferences and the leadership of Her Highness Sheikh Mohsin moving forward, strongly driving this agenda has been particularly important. The Secretary General launched himself a new initiative, Education First, just recently on the margins of the General Assembly of the United Nations. It is the first time ever a Secretary General is putting education among his priorities, and I think this is something extremely important. We see new tendencies in education, especially nowadays. We know that education is not just a human right, which definitely it is, but education is part of the answers to the globalization. Education is part of the answers to the financial and economic crisis.
But that doesn't make the answers any easier.
Education empowers people. Education, I would say, alienates extremism in many parts of the world. Education is about human dignity. Education is about peace. Education is about sustainable development. Education is about also having healthy families and healthy children. So, in one word, when we approach the 2015 end of the Millennium Development Goals agenda, we see that education brings sustainability to all the efforts in the other areas of development.
So it's a key to unlock
we
other
do
areas.
We do believe it brings this sustainability and linkages between all the development goals.
Which makes it even more of an imperative than ever before. Andy Swigo, what is it that makes ExxonMobil so keen to be part of this debate?
Well, I think it's when we look at the communities that we operate in, the countries we operate in around the world, and we see the different needs everywhere, but a common need to improve education, not only for our workforce, but for the betterment of the community, and indeed, as has been said, to sort of provide a bulwark against chaos and entropy and all those sort of things. It's very important to us to start, in many cases, local. We go into places like Nigeria and we find that young Nigerians don't really have the skills and the education to be qualified for the sort of jobs that we have, which are fairly technical, require a good degree of literacy, numeracy, communication skills, those sort of things. So we begin with things like setting up technical training centers. Been very successful in many places. In Nigeria, we've run hundreds, thousands of people through there, not only to provide our workforce, but to provide a skilled, educated workforce for other jobs, whether they be at contractors or whether they be entrepreneurs, starting up their own small businesses, growing the economy, growing the economic health of the community there. And it's been very successful everywhere we've done it. In Nigeria now, we've run thousands of people through there. We've hired many of our graduates, mechanical, electrical, process, instrumentation, very technical, very numerate, very literate, to the point where our Nigerian workforce, which numbers well over 2,000, is more than 90% Nigerian. And we see that as repeatable around the world. But you take it to the United States, sort of another end of the spectrum, and you find there, we have an issue with STEM, the science, technology, education, and math.
Which you believe are really
really important.
For your industry, clearly
for our
important.
industry, but for the health of the country and the world. And so we've had to institute programs in the United States to sort of bolster STEM education there, and to even get back all the way down into the secondary, the primary, and even before the primary, to start building the interest in STEM. Because if you lose children, kids, sort of in the primary area, they don't have a STEM interest, they probably aren't going to pick it up later on. So we find we're having to reach further and further down there in order to just ensure that we have engineering graduates in what is sort of our home country. Okay. So that's the locus of our interest in it.
Okay. Andrei Fursenko, you were crucial to the Russian government's attempt to really reshape education in the country. Just explain what you were trying to do, why it was so important in the post-Soviet Union era.
Yeah, I'll try speak English. Maybe I'll transfer to Russian if I can't explain everything what we are doing. I think that the problems for education is not national problem now. It's much more international. It's a main challenge for all the world that modern society demands other knowledge, other approaches, other competence than give us today's education. As the Churchill said, our head staff, every prepared for the previous war. And education prepares for the maybe yesterday economy, maybe today economy. A very rare for the future economy. And our country, because of a transition, maybe we're in front of this problem a little earlier than other world, because country changed drastically, and we had education for the previous, very powerful, but other organized country, Soviet Union. And when we get the new economy, new challenges, our former Soviet education can't answer on this challenge. So, what and how we have to change in Russia? First of all, and in all the world, first of all, we have to understand that today we have, and tomorrow, we will have the new world and new economy, more convergent. In a few 10 years ago, all science, all economy divided on the small pieces. It was physics separately, chemistry separately, humanitarian separately. Now it's a one world and one knowledge. And if you talk about the education, we have to talk about as a unit, as a converged education. Why we need collaboration? We can't prepare this new education by the narrow specialist.
Which is what the Soviet Union focused on, right? You had specialist schools for language and for science, and that was the way the system worked.
We are not so strong in the, for example, humanitarian knowledge. In the humanitarian, we also have some special ideas, but some areas was gray areas for us, you see. And what we are doing, we maybe give more push for the teachers in the first step, because the teacher can the teacher have to be the mentor. The teacher today can't be the working laboratory, working knowledge, because all children get the knowledge from the internet, from the maybe TV. Any teacher have to be the mentor. And I think it's a problem for the all the world, for Russia especially, because we have to retrain the teachers. And our target now is restructured our higher education, restructured our secondary school, and prepare our children for the new mentality, for the new challenges, and maybe for the more responsibility for their future from the early stage.
But let me ask all of you then whether, because Andy Swiger has talked about the importance of preparing people for the workplace in a range of industries. And I wonder if we could then explore, starting with you, Irina Bokova, like to what extent should that be the focus, preparing children for the economy that they will be part of, and to what extent is it about a love of learning? You know, which should come first?
I do believe that nowadays we speak increasingly about learning, not just education, but really about learning. And we have to match learning and skills. We have to match the time of work, the life of work also, with learning, with education. In fact, UNESCO publishes every year World Monitoring Reports on Education. In this year's report that we just launched a month ago, is about skills and youth and learning and time of and work life. I think this is very important. In some cases, it's technical vocational training that has to be added to some literacy programs, or to have some special parts in the national education plans also for skills and for technical vocational training. But it becomes the issue nowadays. We know that in many parts of the world, the youth population is more than 50%. We know that parts of the problems in many societies, it's youth in employment,
Yeah.
and how to bridge this, how to give these competencies, new competencies for a new economy to these young people is really one of the big challenges
but I
nowadays.
wonder, Andy Swiger, if you are too focused on preparing people for the workplace and for the vocation, then do you lose something along the way? Part of what Andrei Fosenko was saying about humanitarian knowledge, about citizenship, perhaps?
Well, I think that's a very, very important point, and I wouldn't want anybody to mistake what we think in terms of the way we prepare people and what we do as being solely for the workplace. One of the most important things that any nation, company, entity can do is develop people that are also critical thinkers. If you think about politics as being really the process by which we decide how we're going to live together, whether it's a city, a state, a nation, and so forth, critical thinking and participation in that process in one way or another is fundamentally important to a society that works well. Yes, preparing people for the workplace, for the economy, whether it's an old economy, a new economy, is very important, but also the benefits of a solid education to develop critical thinking for participation in society, very important.
Although some societies, Andrei Fosenko, could find that challenging, even frightening. You know, we live in an unstable world. How would you, persuade governments that it is worth investing in young citizens who are, potentially going to be that challenging?
You see, I think it's very important not only critical but positive thinking. Because if we, and maybe it's also the task for the government, we have to send a signal. We have to give the signal that the positive thinking, positive mentality, it's very constructive. And win-win strategy, maybe it's the only strategy which gives a real result. You see, if you talk about the education, we have to understand what's the target. The target is, on the one side, the education is a development institution, is a professional result. The target is a social institution, because it's, we have to feel ourselves comfortable in this world. And it's also the education which can give us. And we have to be comfortable with ourselves. We have to understand that maybe we can't distinguish everything, but we understand that we have such opportunity. And it's something, a lot of depends on us, not on government, on parents. I think one of the signals which we have to send is that we have to go from paternalistic ideas to self-made ideas. And education maybe can and have to send the signal that we give for the young people opportunity. We give the young people some start position, but only they can use this position, can use this opportunity. And especially in a new economy, when everything changes every 3-5 years, and any even best education that we get in university disappeared for the rather short time. And in our basement, we have to enjoy it by the education process. We have to understand that it's treasury, maybe most important treasury for the future, to understand how to improve yourself with education.
Well, I think we've been talking so far particularly about what a quality education would really look like, the kind of high-quality education that everyone deserves, but probably very few people actually get. I wonder, Irina Bokova, if we could return to the point about access. There is evidence that the UN Millennium Development Goals on primary education, that progress towards them has been stalling. So why have we not moved further towards that target of primary education for all?
Well, let me say that if you look still at the evolution I would say, overall achievement of this Millennium Development Goal, still there is positive result overall. At the beginning of this process in the year 2000, there were more than 100 million children out of school. Unfortunately, this is not something that we have to celebrate, because we know that still 67 million are outside school, and out of them, as Her Highness just mentioned, 28 million are in conflict zones, which means that they are much more difficult to reach out. So the question of access becomes really the big issue. And here, I think we need to make an additional effort and to be more focused on understanding what are the reasons. And we know that in many cases, just abolition of taxes for primary education in many countries, and I'm talking about Benin, Senegal, some of the others, have really reached an enrollment, very high enrollment rates. In others, very deliberate focus and matching national policies, increasing budgets for education. I think the biggest challenge nowadays still stays girls' education. I believe that the Malawi example, also the extreme example, I would say, of infringing upon the rights of girls to education, makes us more alert about why girls don't go to school and how we should encourage governments to be more inclusive in their education systems.
And in development terms, there's lots of evidence, isn't there, on how if you educate the girls and the women, what it leads to.
Right.
Because we're talking about collaborating for change, I wonder, in your work, which I know takes you around the world, you know, what are the examples that you think are really positive? I mean, are there countries which you think are really doing, you know, making more progress than others that we should really look to?
Well, I think that there are many countries that are making a progress, and I know that last year's laureate of the prize, the BRAC institution, which won the prize, it's a wonderful example, and representing also Bangladesh is a very good case in point. Bangladesh are not only reaching very fastly the second Millennium Development Goal, but they have already achieved gender equality in primary education, which is an excellent example of focused national policies matching with the right resources in order to do it. We know that in the literacy, also an important area of literacy, I just come from India, where we had a meeting of the E9 countries, the most populous countries in the world, where more than 2/3 of the literate people live in, and they're making big strides about reaching literacy rates and enrollment also in classes. But if you allow me just one quick point here to mention, if we even see that enrollment rates are increasing, still, if you look, we could analyze very, I would say, closely what is the situation in many cases. Because of the poor quality of education, because of the high dropout rates, we see nowadays, and in our global monitoring report this year, we mentioned this data, statistic data. We now have 200 million people, which practically, although some of them are included in this statistical data, practically they cannot read and write, let alone have some skills and competencies.
Yeah.
So we have to match access and also quality of education, and I would say equity, reaching to the marginalized, reaching to those communities which are not included into the system.
And that shows why the challenge is so great, because really you can't focus on one and then the other. You know, you have to kind of push on access and quality at the same time. Andrei Frasenko, what is your perspective, given what you've seen in Russia, on this debate between access, quality, and also equity, making sure that everyone gets the same chances?
Of course, first of all, it's our efforts, of course, in first order, concentrate on Russia, because it's a very big country with a very different situation, condition, different regions. In south of the Russia, in Caucasian countries, one situation. In the northern, it's another one. But we really, for the few last years, push the unification of the quality of the education all the country. On the one side, from side of the demands, we realize unified approach for the verification of the knowledge. On the other side, for the quality, we change the quality both for the teachers, for the children, for the housing and so on. On the other side, I think it's also our responsibility to think not only about Russia, but about other countries of the world. And we participate with UNESCO in different projects with a program for the former Soviet Union countries, but also for the countries in Asia, in Africa. And our knowledge in natural science and our approaches, which we get after the transition of the Soviet Union to Russia, I think can be and will be useful. What's one of the very important problems for the improvement of the education is the problem of the reputation of the knowledge. The people have to understand that the knowledge really gives them the key for the future life. The reputation of the people who transfer this knowledge for the institution. And I think for the very changing situation, the reputation still more and more important, because the people in this changing world have to understand what is the example, how it's possible to improve themselves.
Yeah. I wonder, Andy Zweig, I know you also, because ExxonMobil works around the world, you also have a sense of projects that are working or not working in different countries. I also want to ask you, though, about the role of private sector in education. We're going to talk over the next couple of days about many different aspects that bring in the private sector, whether it's in financing or in provision. But, why is it part of your role to get involved in education when policy making in that area is a national issue primarily?
Well, I think the question you asked plays very much to the theme of this conference, which is collaboration for change. And if you think of the key collaborative bodies in the education space, government, huge role to play. Philanthropic institutions, big roles to play. And in there also is business. 3 big partners in the collaboration for change. And what does business bring to it? Well, business in many cases, whether it's our business or other businesses, brings a real knowledge of what's needed in the economic space or the communities that we operate in to help focus the educational program.
So does that mean it helps do what Andrei Fosenko was saying, that we have to think much further afield? We can't prepare for the economy of today.
I think it helps the focus both near and longer term. What do we need now? Where are we going? And then you couple that with the second important thing that business brings, which is what we do really well, which is we measure, we study, we analyze, we improve, and we get into that virtuous circle. What you measure and understand, you can improve. And that applies to the education space, just like it applies to any business process that you're doing. So I think therein lies the big role of business in this collaboration for change that we're here to talk about.
We only have a couple of minutes left, so I want to just ask you for a final thought. There is so much energy in this room, but at the same time, there's frustration that we're not moving fast enough on the education debate and on the education agenda. So just to end, a final thought, what is it that's going to make a difference to really give us hope that this is a battle that can be won?
I think that education has to be shared. This ambition about education has to be shared by all the different partners. And this is why this forum is important. I just pick up from the last words. It's about innovation in terms of technology, of open resources, of introducing entirely new vision about education. It's about partnerships, private sector, intergovernmental organizations, the civil society. I think that nowadays education becomes the big issue of the 21st century if we want to bridge the gap between poverty and prosperity, between, I would say, sustainable development and destroying of our environment. It is about global citizenship, and I'm very happy that the private sector brings this issue. It's about values. It's about how we live together. It's about bridging the gap between tolerance and intolerance. And I think only if we have these big partnerships nowadays in the world, we can really achieve some progress in that area.
Andrei Fosenko? What gives you hope?
The very short thing. I think maybe most important thing that in the center of the education is the student, not professor, not the teacher, student. And if we concentrate on the future of the students, on the interests of the students, and collaborate around it, we can construct new education and new world.
Andy Swiger, finally.
Well, I think there are two big things that give me hope. First of all, this collaboration for change, government, business, philanthropic efforts, I see coming together in thousands of different ways in thousands of different locations, always serving a noble purpose to move things forward. And it's not formulaic, it's just happening very well, and I think we need more of it. The second thing that gives me hope is that the work, the research, the data that's been done around improving teaching, and I agree the student is important, but teachers make a huge difference. And I think when we apply good processes and good thinking to the preparation of teachers, we're seeing amazing results. And by amazing results, I mean more good people going into teaching, staying in teaching longer. You know, I mean, 65% of the people that go into teaching are out after 5 years. We're finding the right kind of programs, we're getting 80% still after 10 years. And 45% of those people will go to hard to staff, hard to teach type locations. So the access is improving, the quality of the access is improving. The ability to do that, just focusing a bit on the teaching, gives me a lot of hope for the future.
So we need to develop the critical thinking around the world, and we need to apply it to the education debate as well. Thank you all. It's been fantastic to have your thoughts to really get the debate going here at WISE this year. So thank you very much. Irina Bokova, Andy Swiger and Andrei Fosenko. Thank you. Thanks so much. So, certainly. Thank you so much to the first panel. A fantastic way, I think, to get us all in the right frame of mind right at the start of 3 days that I think are going to be pretty intense for us all. Well, I'm delighted to say, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that it's now time to unveil this year's WISE Prize. I can tell you the identity of the laureate has been a very, very closely guarded secret. The jury have really not let the news travel beyond their own circles. So this is a very special moment. It's only the second year of the WISE Prize, but it's really aimed at honouring those who are truly making unique contributions in breaking down the barriers in this field. So to tell you more and indeed to reveal this year's WISE Prize laureate, please welcome Dr. Abdullah back on stage. Thank you.
Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for many years there have been international awards for important disciplines such as science, medicine, economics, literature, and human rights. 2 years ago, Her Highness Sheikh Hamouza bint Nasser established a prize of a parallel status to recognize an outstanding contribution to education, which underlies achievement in all other fields. This prize raises global awareness of the crucial role of education in all societies, and its winners are examples who will inspire us and generations to come. The inaugural WISE Prize for Education was presented 1 year ago by His Highness the Emir Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. Over the past months, we have conducted an extensive global search for another unusual person worthy of this prestigious award. First, we were assisted by an international committee of education specialists who made a preliminary selection from the hundreds of impressive nominations we've received. I was then honored to chair the jury of eminent individuals who had the difficult task of selecting a single winner. I wish to thank my fellow members of the 2012 WISE Prize for Education jury for sharing their wisdom and judgment so generously. Dr. James Billington, Her Excellency Naledi Pandor, Professor Ju Keefing, Mrs. Mary Robinson, Professor Jeffrey Sack, and Mrs. Fatma Zakaria. Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to tell you that, after deep and serious consideration, our high-level jury identified an individual who we believe truly exemplifies the values of WISE. This is someone whose clear vision, whose patient and methodical approach and ability to apply previously unrecognized capacities to a common cause has brought light into the lives of the millions. The 2012 WISE Prize for Education laureate is Dr. Mataf Shavan, co-founder and chief executive of Pratham.
Imagine someone creating an education network that welcomes millions of children and their teachers. Imagine doing this at low cost, using untapped resources and forging productive partnerships. Imagine reaching and maintaining high professional standards through dedicated volunteer teachers. Imagine a chain reaction of education spreading from one city to an entire nation and beyond. Now imagine that one education pioneer made this possible. Madhav Chavan has devoted over 2 decades to helping the most deprived in India to access education, so that they can claim their place in society. In his formative years, he acquired a strong sense of justice from his parents, who were active in India's independence struggle. He broadened and deepened his worldview while earning a doctorate in chemistry in the United States. On returning home, he realized that literacy was the key to reducing inequality and accelerating social development. Chavan recruited and inspired volunteers in underserved communities in Mumbai. He gave his newly trained teachers the confidence to carve out their own paths and to adapt their methods to the needs of their students. This education innovator broke the mold through his Read India program. Children learn to read in under 2 months and go on to blossom in primary school. He brought civil society, the corporate sector, and government together to help achieve his promise of every child in school and learning well. His NGO, Pratham, has become the largest non-governmental provider of basic literacy and numeracy for underprivileged children in India. Chavan and his colleagues also generated a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation system. Pratham's annual Status of Education Report, ASA, is a national survey conducted by volunteers that measures the provision and quality of education in schools and has become an essential tool for policymakers. Less than a quarter century after the launch of his mass literacy campaign for Mumbai's poorest children, Chavan's initiatives have reached 17 of India's 28 states, and now also reach Pakistan, Kenya, Tanzania, and Ghana. Madhav Chavan conceived and implemented an effective formula to strengthen education on a large scale, at low cost and with high quality. It is now being transmitted to millions, and each recipient will become a catalyst for further change. Today, in recognition of his outstanding contribution, he is being awarded the 2012 WISE Prize for Education.
Please welcome with me to the stage the laureate of 2012 Wise Prize for Education, Dr. Mataf Shavan. In recognition of this profound significance of the occasion, I now invite His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani to the stage to present the 2012 Wise Prize for Education.
Well, thank you, Dr. Abdullah. Many congratulations to Dr. Madhav, who is this year's Wise Prize laureate, and we will have a chance to hear from him on the closing day of Wise, where we'll hear more about his work and the journey that brought him to this honor. But congratulations, it's very special to see you awarded with this honor, and we look forward to hearing more about your work. The 2012 Wise Prize laureate. Your Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is a fitting way to get the Wise Gathering underway this year. I'd like to thank their Highnesses for being here. It really sets the right tone for the whole summit. So thank you very much. And of course, to everyone, don't forget that this conversation continues on Twitter. So I wish you all a really productive and thought-provoking and insightful 3 days at Wise. Enjoy it. Thank you very much.